Mayor. We'll call the meeting to order. First, I pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Artish, Burris.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Mason. Here. Peterson.
Here.
York.
Here. We have in your packet the minutes for the July 12th meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections that need to be made?
Oh, the meeting should be accepted as presented.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda as printed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Time for public comments, and I would remind everyone that it says that each person has 3 minutes, and when they want to make a public comment, they are to state their name and address for the official record. Is there any public comment?
Frank Holloway, 312 Bridge Street, beautiful city of Steve, Michigan. It's been a few months since Jake said that he was going to look at some water rates and do some comparisons. I was wondering if you ever got that finished?
Yeah, the rate study. Yeah, that was back in spring. Yeah, I have that ready for you at City Hall. I can email it to you after I have your email.
Okay.
What am
Good.
I on the meeting or not? Comments?
Yes, name and address, please.
My name is Warren Wells, 321 Woodland Drive.
Thank you.
And my comment, my problems are, Jake and I talked about them, the trees on the side property there with the berries, there's 3 of them there. They need to be cut down and replaced with something else or just cut down. They track into my building there, but because they have a berry on and they're a red berry. And people, it's not people's fault, they just get them on the shoes and walk in the building, we got stains and clean them. That's one. Second one is the water. It comes into my building once or twice a year. Where we have a flash flood, we need to change that sidewalk out there so that doesn't happen. The state has tried hard, and they have tried hard, but they've never done anything to the sidewalk. All they've done is work out the road, and it's never worked. And I know how to make it work. I've talked to Jake about it, and nothing's been done, and I need to have that done before I get flooded out again. Because it's been there, it's been that way. When I built that building was 13 inches higher than the curb. Today, the curb is 8 inches above the doorway. So the water naturally comes in there. It's a natural, comes all water. Actually, you could trace that water that's coming into my building all the way from the courthouse because there's nothing to stop it from coming in there. I'd like to have that sidewalk fixed, and it needs to be done. I gotta have it done. I'm gonna have it done. And the same way with those trees. If you want to put new trees back, fine, but those are too big and they're just not the right kind of tree to be on the main street beside the sand. Another one, not mine, which is a blue building up there on top of the hill, needs a little help mowing and trimming along the edge of the road. We've got a real grass garden growing along our curb there. I'm up with more tree things. I'm just trying to get them all done one time. And the lawn needs to be mowed. The property owner owns it, whoever owns it, you have the right to make them, I believe, to mow it or you mow it for them. And you can put it on their taxes. I've been in that boat before other places, so I know you can do it. That was my hope I get something done out of it.
Yeah, and regarding the sidewalk, Warren showed that to me several times. It looks like at some point during the streetscaping, the city put some catch drains in there. Apparently they're not catching all the water. I know we had one of our hydrants pop during hydrant flushing and it shot water into that building and it definitely got all the way into the building. And we ended up having to, replace some flooring and things like that. So that is a concern. We discussed maybe some flashing and stuff like that.
Flashing, I don't think it works, sir, because all that would do is protect the boards. It doesn't keep the water, because if you put a flashing up there, still, that sidewalk is still coming into those doors. And if the sidewalk got to be changed, you
So
go
it's
the
the
other way.
doors where the water's predominantly getting in? Because one time when we discussed it, you said it was getting in under the,
It gets all the way around, all both ways, but the door is a big deal.
okay, gotcha.
And you can't put a flashing there, you can't go to the doorway.
Sure, well, why don't we'll set a time to meet again and we can walk through it, because maybe I need to refine my understanding of it a little bit. We'll get something on the agenda for these guys to take a look at. Maybe some cost sharings or something like that. Because I think the reason for the water, according to your assertion, is because of the streetscape change. Formerly, your building was sitting higher, now with the streetscape change, it's sitting lower. So maybe we can come up with something that'll work for
You
everyone.
also had a curb there, curb and gutter. The laws changed, and now that's water going right down that sidewalk.
Because of the
If you had, because your catch basins are in the right place, but they don't have the ability to catch the water. It goes right by them.
Sure. Well, we'll make an appointment for either late this week or early next week. I appreciate it.
Jim, any comment about berries?
Yeah, those are Bartlett pear trees, and they do come up, I'm sure many of you have seen them, they kind of drop on the sidewalk and then they stain the sidewalk and things like that. I'm not opposed to replacing them. The reason we replaced all the trees down Main Street itself is those were ash trees and they actually had succumbed to emerald ash borer, many of them were dead or dying. These trees are not dead or dying. I think, you know, if they're an inconvenience to one or two property owners, I think that's up to the commission to decide if they're worth spending public funds to replace. That being said, I believe Warren and I spoke before, and he said there may be some cost sharing opportunities there. And as long as
I'll
we-
work with you.
Yeah, as long as we replaced them, he may be willing to donate new trees to the city. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I know we talked about it at least once or twice. So we'll talk about that in that meeting as well.
Also, those trees now are blocking, I have a big sign that, where the dance studio is at, you can't see it at all, the trees right into the,
Yeah, they
they're
have gotten,
blocking completely.
they have gotten quite tall. And, you know, we discussed that too, right when I got here, we took the ash trees out. You know, city trees have really been, the primary height for them is between 12 and 18 feet, depending on the size of your building. So they are much taller than that. I mean, they're probably over 30 feet high. So,
Yes, they are.
so we'll have to, that's a fair point as well. So we'll talk about that as well, and maybe we'll come up with some suggestions for the commission at their next meeting. Is that-
Can you do something about the blue building? You're always talking about, get rid of that blue building, well, here's,
I don't
at least make it look like it's for sale.
Yeah, I think the mowing thing, yeah, we can absolutely do something about that. If the grass, I believe it's 12 inches per ordinance, 10 or 12 inches. So if it's over 12 inches, then we can mow it and put it on their taxes.
Well, up on the road, it is over 12 inches.
Sure. And that being said, there are local businesses that are interested in potentially investing in that building. We're working with them pretty actively, but in the meantime, we will take care of the grass issue. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Dave Feldbach, 85 North Ray Road, Butler, Michigan. I'm actually the director of the Montcalm County Emergency Services, and I'm here just to speak for a second, because 1 week from today on the August primary is the EMS village renewal. A couple of just quick reminders, I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. Reminder that it is a renewal. As hard as I argue every year with the lawyers what the valid language ought to be, I lose every time. And it sounds like it's an increase, even though it's the same village that you've been paying for the last 8 years. So it is only renewal, it is not an increase, even though the valid language sounds that way. Other thing I'd like to mention is that we do our best to control our costs. The last 3 years, we have been approved at 0.75 mils. We've only levied 0.65 because that's where I was able to run a balanced budget. This year, I've only requested 0.6. Fuel prices have been good to us, things have gone fairly well. I don't want to spend any more money than I have to. I know that's kind of unpopular in government these days, but that's just kind of the way I am. All my contact information's on the front. There's loads of information in there. I don't want to take up any more time in your meeting. If you have individual questions, my contact info's on it. Please give me a call. And please vote 1 week from today. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Then we'll move on to the minutes of July 12th. Please look them over, see if there's anything. Oh, did we do that?
No, you said minutes for the agenda approval
Oh, I
the first
meant-
time, but then you said agenda the second time. So I think you meant agenda approval.
Yes, I meant agenda approval. Did you understand that?
First time?
Yeah,
The first time. I bet, sorry.
second
Now,
time you said
let's
agenda.
do the minutes. Any deletions, additions, or corrections? It's the minutes of the July.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It is carried. My apologies. The next item are the bills. They're in your packet, please look them over. See if you have any questions. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
Make a motion to approve the bills as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the bills for July 2016. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. So carried. Reports, Department of Public Works. Anything that you want to comment?
Oh, actually, Consumers Power, we're able to get the pole in, and I think we're going to set so we can move forward with the power supply, and hopefully it'll be done before the little February. Excuse me. So, yeah, that'll be nice to have that salt camera powered up. I think everything's in.
All that's left to do is replace the sidewalk pavers, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah, we'll be able to pour the, fill it back in concrete, get it all perforated back up, should be a go. And also Warren, the blue building was on my radar, we'll be sure to take care of it.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I do have a question. Maybe it's just this one, but I got a notice that my new water meter was not working properly. Has
Yeah.
that happened more than once?
It
or-
did, there's several occurrences of that, where, your meter was actually a newer meter, and the company that we bought all the new meters from, they were able to give us a remote that would correspond to that meter, and instead of changing the whole water meter itself, we just added a remote to your existing meter, and we can read it that way. Well, we've had several that do not feed the radio frequency out, or where we can pick it up with the wire.
They're two different brands, so he has an iPro, must be.
He has an iPro.
Yeah, so iPro is made by Census, and those were some of the new ones we had before the change-out project. And we were hoping that we could retrofit, basically, the radios for the Neptune meters are a two-wire system, and then the iPros are a three-wire system. So basically, you run an extra wire, and they should communicate with one another, and it sounds like a few of them just aren't.
There's a few, and it's not a lot, but there's a few in yours.
So in that event, we'll just do a total meter change-out, and replace with the radio and the new meter. So
My meter must have 4 wire.
So the bill.
Tell the next one.
My meter goes, okay.
But Jamie and the guys have done a really good job. I think we're down to under 50, or right around 50.
We're down to probably closer to under 60.
Under 60.
They're the hardest.
Yeah, we'll just get it.
So are you estimating the ones where the meters are not reading correctly, or how's that being done?
That'll be a question for,
For the ones that haven't read correctly, you mean?
Yes.
yeah.
No, not all of them. Some of them were estimated, maybe based on their water usage before.
Previously, 6 months.
Try to catch them.
We've tried to correct some of these glitches and catch them soon, and some of them we were able to get into and look at and make it work. Some of them we actually had wired in correctly. I didn't knock on your door yet to go in and actually read your meter, and I was hoping that this time around there were some bugs that maybe were happening where I could read it this time around, so possibly we were estimating, but it's not across the
If
board.
I caught them, I tried to estimate it based on the previous usage, but if I didn't catch it.
Then the reading would be incorrect.
Right.
And as the meter is corrected, our true reads will show up. Catch that.
Will it report under or over?
Almost always, we're just gonna report under, because it's really hard to break a meter in such a way where it's gonna over-report. Now, well, that's one of the reasons that we replaced the meters is broken meters are inaccurate meters almost, maybe not even almost, always favor the consumer, so they are less accurate.
Plus, the meter accuracy is not a question, it's just the frequency that it's putting out.
So you can't radio read it.
Oh,
The
okay.
meter's fine,
So
it's the
it
radio
can be,
broadcast.
oh, it can be read.
But he has to get into.
But I would have, yes, actually go in and physically look at the meter, and I haven't done that with all of them.
All right, thank you. City manager report?
Well, I think Joe will probably, I know he didn't probably never report this
I'm
week,
sorry,
but
Joe.
he might want to introduce her.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce the new officer who started today.
Today.
Desiree Bryce, she comes from Centerville. Just a little bit about you.
Well, I actually live in Reed City, Michigan. Graduated from Ferris State University, love it up there. And I got laid off. I worked there for 3.5 years. And so I wanted, my biggest thing as a police officer, 27 years old, and a police officer 7 years. And I actually originally started my career in the city of Saginaw. So I hit the ground running really fast. I got to Reed City and I had to learn how to investigate my own stuff. I didn't have detectives to do my job for me. So I went from a city police officer to a small town police officer, and I really adapted quite well with the small town. I'm a police officer and I'm a community police officer. I like to help people when I can. I know the families. The easier I know the families and the community, the easier my job is. I was also a school liaison officer, so I got along quite well with the kids. So that's why I felt that Stanton would be a perfect fit for me, because it will give me time to adapt to this community, and really, it's pretty much like Reed City, except it's a little bit slower, so not too bad though. So I'm the police officer that people can go to bounce ideas off of, or just have simple questions that, you know, they don't really want to ask anybody else. So feel free to contact me with anything you might have. But I don't have $1 million if any of you guys want. You're welcome. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Anything else? All right, cool.
Thank you.
All right, so you may have noticed blue ribbons hanging from all of our post lights downtown, as well as several businesses in City Hall. Ginger Jarecki, actually, she serves on the DDA, she's a prominent community member. She came up with that idea for the city to show solidarity with law enforcement. There's been some trying times across the state and the country. It's actually inspired other communities. I know Lakeview has ordered ribbons as well, and I believe Edmore is going to be doing the same thing. So it's kind of cool it originated here, but I think, and we put it on our Facebook just to kind of get the word out, that this is what these mean, and this is why we put them up. And over 10,000 people saw that post, and we got a lot of positive feedback. So that was nice to see the community rally around law enforcement. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the housing and investment program tonight. We got a lot of submissions for the photo contest. I'm really pleased to see that. Some people are in the community or in the meeting tonight that have submitted, so that's really cool. We're going to be reaching out to the schools as we discussed. Elizabeth's taking care of that. She made a flyer. We sent that along to the superintendent to put on their Facebook page. Kind of hard to get a hold of everybody right now. It's the summer, but we're going to see if we can get a few of the students, because we'd really like to represent the young people on our website. So give you guys lots of options to pick from. Chuck Mile alone submitted like 80 photos, so we have quite a few to pick from. Let's see here, I attended the Stanton Old Fashioned Days meeting yesterday. Make sure they had everything they need from us. They're having some issues with a shortage of volunteers, so if anybody's interested in helping them out, anything from just being able to empty the garbages once an hour to, running stuff around, carrying water to people, that kind of thing. They're a little bit concerned that they're going to fall short, that meetings haven't been as well attended as previous meetings. So other than that, it sounded as though things are coming right along. And they asked me to pass along that they appreciate the electricity installation very much. So that's really good partnership there. I got a list of all the current assessors doing business in Montgomery County and municipalities and townships. I'm going to specifically target them with our RFP. I think that would be good to get it to an assessment firm that actually already does business in the county, because I think that'll just benefit us. So hopefully we'll get some local bids, as opposed to, so far I've only been really in communication with firms that operate out of bigger cities that service smaller cities. It'd be kind of nice to get some smaller municipality assessors in. Then we ordered the Christmas decorations that you guys approved. I'm really excited about that. So things are coming right along. And then the DDA just event, and they had a very productive meeting. We kind of circled the wagons and talked about Taste of Montcalm. You know, all positive feedback for the most part. We talked about a few little things we can tweak to kind of grow the event, and then kind of focused on some vision goals for attracting more food vendors, doing bands all day as opposed to just 3 in the evening, and then to actually double the number of artisan vendors and move them outside the liquor control area. So next year we're shooting for 15 to 20 restaurants, 50 art vendors, and 6 to 8 bands. So trying to grow the event pretty substantially. And I believe they thank the city for their assistance too, so that's good. That's what we got.
Any commissioners have a question for Dave?
Did the DDA talk anything more about the Christmas tree contest?
Yeah, I kind of opened it up to them a little bit tonight, and they were definitely receptive. We kind of talked about just things in general, because they're not going to get TIF funding this year. It looks as though it may be a few years before they get substantially funded. So, you know, we talked about ways to keep them interested and engaged with low or no cost endeavors. So what I really think the DDA can do is be an excellent partner to the city government when trying to solicit public feedback or trying to give input about, you know, the wayfinding project we're going to tackle this coming fall or spring. So we're going to try to keep them involved, but like the Christmas program, I think, you know, that'd be excellent. Elizabeth and I can work directly with them, and they can help us, you know, coordinate volunteers. I spoke to the superintendent of schools today, and oh, that reminds me of something, so that's good. But you know, spoke to her about having the band and the choir on the new carols and stuff for the tree lighting ceremony, and you know, they were all about it. They were definitely interested in staying engaged, because one thing I worry about is if they don't get funded, you know, that they'll eventually, if they're all busy people, they'll lose interest and we'll start not getting quorums, and then they'll become less effective. So in order to keep them all engaged, which is what they want and what we need from them, we've come up with some ideas to keep them busy. And then I should mention too, I met this morning with the superintendent of schools concerning just giving a progress report. I also presented to the school board last week. We did get some good feedback for our MDOT Transportation Alternatives Program grant. We got preliminary support for that, as I mentioned. The MDNR Natural Resource Trust Fund grant, we heard back. They said it's a solid application, but we do have one issue that is potentially a hiccup. So they're saying, by their site control standards, they're saying that they're not going to accept the 100-year lease or 50-year with 2 options to renew lease as proper site control of the site, which would make us ineligible for that grant. But the good news is they called us now so that we can work on it, and they just told us things they would accept in it instead. So the 2 options were to have the school sign a permanent easement that allows for the park, or conduct a fee simple transfer and actually come to own the property as the city. I met with the superintendent this morning. I said, we're not really interested in owning that property. And she said, I'm not really interested in selling you that property. So we kind of landed on the easement. Essentially, we can do a specific utility easement, so it'll enumerate the things that we're allowed to do. Our legal can put it together, and it'll basically keep the same terms as our existing lease. Like, these are the things we're doing, and we can, do a separate development agreement with them, basically saying if we don't fulfill the terms that are in that lease, we would agree to vacate the easement. So she was very amenable to that. She already talked to the board president and a couple other members to make sure she would have the votes, and told us to go ahead and go forward with that easement. So that's our plan of action. We have until October to get it taken care of, so it's not going to be nothing that's going to stop us. But the good news is, other than that, they said it was a really solid grant proposal. So that's the progress of the report I have for that. I forgot to add to the report because I just talked it all out this morning. That's all I've got.
Does anyone know of any existing business needs to be taken care of?
A lot of things are in flux right now. We're just working on a bunch of different stuff. I think we have 7 active projects right now.
All right, then let's deal with new business. Tell us about the Standing Housing Investment Program.
Okay, so tonight, all I really want, I'm not looking for a vote, I'm not looking for any action. I just want to give a preliminary introduction to an idea that I've got that I think could really revitalize housing investment and just kind of get a general revitalization of our housing stock going in the city that the city can kind of lead the way on. So I've dubbed it the Stanton Housing Investment Program, or SHIP for short. And it's just something that we're going to walk through in a presentation and hopefully foster a good discussion for the commission. So things we're going to discuss tonight, some of our housing issues as I see them and as the data kind of points them out. Private sector conditions in the housing market, some testimonials and a case study that I think is interesting, that involves, the public sector getting into homes, and, then the proposal as I see it, and then hopefully a good discussion so we can kind of see where our next steps might be if we decide to move forward. Our current housing issues. So, as you know, the city of Stanton is home to very old housing stock. That's very common. Most municipalities, most urban, small urban, even large urban, have old housing stock. In the last 40 years, you know, really since the GI Bill boom with the Vietnam veterans, suburban living has become sort of the norm in society. People want to be outside of a city core, in a neighborhood with a bigger lot, bigger house, that kind of stuff. So a lot of the new housing starts in the last 4 years have taken place outside of city limits, and that we're no exception to that. So in the last 15, 20 years, best as we can tell, there's been about 4 new housing starts in the city limits itself. And we do still have a considerable blight and dilapidation issue. So, you know, we took care of 3 bad ones. There's still, and we, you know, got people to move on some of their own stuff, did the huge junk cleanup, and that was a huge help. But we do still have a systemic problem. And it just happens. It's nobody's fault. So over the course of these decades, over the course of time, you're gonna have people that either can no longer physically take care of their home, financially take care of their home, or the home becomes vacant. And, you know, there's a block of 5 houses, and every 10, 20, 30 years, one of them's gonna start to decay because of one of those factors. So over the course of time, that becomes a systemic blight issue, like I feel we have here. That creates a problem. It lowers the property values for the adjoining properties, which obviously negatively affects our tax base over time. And it's unsightly. It gives a bad community development aspect. People aren't proud to live on their street when there's a blighted vacant home with, you know, animals running in and out, broken windows, that kind of stuff. So how do we solve that problem? Well, there's a lack of marketable stock, and that contributes further to that community and economic decline. You know, you have population stagnation. You can't draw new people in to live somewhere if there's no new houses, and you start to see that decline. And unfortunately, as I said, you know, the private sector is just not focused on urban areas, small urban or large urban, for new housing starts. It's just not happening. So lack of population growth obviously breeds a lack of private sector investment. The lack of private sector investment contributes to population growth, and you get what we call housing stagnation. You know, the houses don't move very quickly when they go up for sale. Very few move anyway because people keep them in the family. And then over the course of years, just one by one, you start to see one or more, you know, go down that blight road. So that's sort of the, you know, and it's not an unusual problem. This isn't a Stanton problem. This is a community problem. Everybody, everywhere is suffering from these things. And it's very common, but we do have that issue. So what are the conditions like right now in the housing market? In Michigan, surprisingly, we're doing fairly well. Right around the state average, or the national average. There's obviously boom states, there's bust states. Surprisingly enough, North and South Dakota for a long time were the leaders for new housing starts per capita because of oil. Obviously that's gone away in the last year. So it's just, there's a lot of market factors. The housing market is recovering pretty quickly. Home values are approaching stable values. I say stable values, not pre-recession values, because one of the key things that contributed to the housing market decline was the fact that so many people's homes were so overvalued. The housing market had a bubble. A lot of people have heard that term. So we're starting to approach reasonable and stable home values. You know, the housing market in Montcalm County from when I started in 2014 to this point, the last data section I could get, the average home price market value has increased 18%, so almost a fifth, which is very good. They declined a little bit more than a fifth during the recession, so that tells you they're probably right about where they should be because they were overvalued. We do have a seller's market all across the state, Montcalm County included, has housing starts and speculation housing projects springing up all over, including just outside of town. I actually passed 4 different housing speculation starts. I'm just on my way here. So the closest being just west of Gowan is where one is. And then there's, you know, all along the Kent City, and then some, I know there's also some in the Panhandle area of Montcalm County, and then some east of Edmore as well. Basically, you have companies like Sable Homes or Allen Edwin, and they purchase a lot, they purchase acreage, and they say, you know, as people design homes and pick homes out of our catalogs, as we get a certain number of starts, we'll build a certain amount, and after we build those and get our profit out of those, then we'll build a few more. And that's how these subdivisions that I was talking about in the suburban areas kind of work, and they kind of build piece by piece like that, which there's all kinds of issues with that, but that's a different presentation. So the average home listing time in Michigan is 76 days, and I actually just got some data from Nancy Manis during the DEA meeting. Montcalm County, if you average all properties and homes, it's about 103 days, so that includes vacant land. If you take it down to homes that are on the market, the average list time is 48 days, so we're actually ahead of the state when it comes to the average listing time. We have and the reason for that is we have a record low inventory in Montcalm County right now. If you include vacant lots and homes for sale, not including for sale by owner, which is not very good data on those, there's 669 lots or homes for sale in the county right now. That's about 30% under what the average is, and that's less than half of what it was during the housing crisis when there was well over 1,300 lots and homes for sale in Montcalm County at any given time, which, for your information, is 1 in 7 homes and lots in Montcalm County. So at one point, it was a pretty stark market. So I guess the question I ask myself, as we have these lots, we tore down these blighted homes is, why not here? Why am I not seeing that here? I watch the data here and there just to keep my finger on the pulse of housing sales and housing listings. And things are selling fairly quickly when they come up, but they're not coming up much. And we have vacant land that we're marketing. I've gotten lots of calls, but only one offer. And I've had some people say, well, I'll give you, I'll guarantee that I'll build a duplex on it, or I'll put one day I want to put a double wide on it, but I want you to give me the lot. And it's like, well, no, that wasn't the motion that you guys put out. You wanted at least the demolition cost back. So, as we started looking into things, it's like, well, what can we do to kind of move this along? The private sector is just not responding to what we have to offer when it comes to housing starts in the city. So we looked at a case study, and there's actually a few all around the country. This is a Michigan one, so I think that's appropriate. This is the Midtown Square project. I would encourage you to Google it after the meeting and kind of check out what they did. I talked extensively to city staff about this and talked to them about how I was interested in doing something similar. Recently the city of Muskegon has made a lot of progress in cultivating a new commercial investment there downtown. There's new breweries, there's new art galleries, there's new shops, all this and that. But what they've really struggled to do and what makes a good core, which is important to realize that cities like Stanton or any small municipality of around 2,500 or under, really what you are is a downtown corridor and residential neighborhoods surrounding. There's a commerce center and then there's residents and then you have your parks and rec. Really, if you look at a big municipality, they're the same thing, except their downtown and their residences around their downtown aren't their whole city. They have other residential areas or strip commercial areas as well. But the core of every municipality, all the way up to like your larger cities, really is what we are. It's a commercial core, a downtown, and then residential surrounding. We, being in a small area, we don't have that same problem that they're having. They're struggling to attract residential housing in their old neighborhoods directly around their downtown corridor. So they supported a proposal by their city manager last year to invest $1.7 million in public funds to build 9 new homes on a city block that had been vacant